Good morning, students. As promised, I've put together this short tutorial for constructing a wire model. You've taken some time to draw your line drawings of your hand, 3 20-minute drawings, where you're essentially taking a look at your hand. We talked about a number of different ways of considering it. This space, this space that exists right where the background and the foreground meet, really tracing that without sort of like engaging this conception of what you think a hand looks like, but just really observing the hand. Then we moved on ultimately to a drawing that examines that and then moves on to all of those different lines that define the hand, okay? That was what that's where we ended up in our last class. So what I want to do is draw your focus down to the workspace here in front of me. You probably remember I just realized it's probably upside down for you. Here was a quick sketch or a quick 10-minute drawing that I made during our class period last session, and I'm just going to work from this just to sort of provide you with a model. Now the idea is that we want to do a similar thing here in wire. We're going to convert what we made here, this 2-dimensional rendering of our hand, into a 3-dimensional rendering, a line drawing, if you will, in space. So rather than a line drawing on a piece of paper, we're thinking about a line drawing that exists in space. You can see I drew my hand quite a bit bigger than my actual hand. I was encouraging you to try and sort of like work within roughly the scale of your hand, although these are drawings where we're attempting to interpret this part of our body. So if it's a little bigger, a little smaller, that's all fine. You're just trying to get accustomed to making observations and translating them into line work from the 3-dimensional form into a 2-dimensional form, and now back to a 3-dimensional form. The materials that you're going to be using is very, very basic, simple wire. Now, the stuff I asked you to buy is just a little bit different than what I have here. This is a galvanized wire. I think I asked you to buy a black annealed wire. I just happen to have this on hand, so I'm going to use it. But yours should be just a tiny bit easier to work and a little bit, might be a tiny bit heavier than the wire I have here. So bottom line, I believe the stuff I asked you to order came in a similar package to this, where you can unspool it right out of the package, which is handy, so it doesn't get all tangled and difficult to work with. There should be about 50 feet in your package, similar to what we have here. And this is what I'm going to ask you to make your spatial line drawing with, your sculpture, your line drawing in space. So I want to just start by examining what we have here. And it's interesting, looking at this upside down makes it even easier for me to think about converting this from the drawing that's in front of me back into a 3-dimensional form, because I'm not so fixated on what a hand looks like. I'm just fixated on all of the lines. So that's what we're doing here. We're observing the lines, we're observing their relationships to each other within the drawings that we made. All right, we're dismissing that sense that we know what a hand is supposed to be. So what I want to encourage you to do is start your line drawing in space, your sculpture, and I'm just going to let this kind of move off the edge of the paper, by choosing some sort of like random starting point. Now, for some reason, I keep starting down here by the bottom of the palm of the hand. And so what I might do is just in a rough sense, I might even kind of trace it a little bit and start to try and replicate a sense of that line that I'm working with, that I'm working from, okay? Now, of course, if I just went and did the entire outline, I'd create a 2-dimensional facsimile, right? It'd be 3-dimensional in some sense, like it could cast shadows and stuff, but it would remain a flat form. And we're really trying to sort of like reactivate this as a three-dimensional form, all right? Something that resembles a little more closely our actual hand. So not only will I be looking at the drawing, I'll also be looking at my hand as I do this. I'm going to be referring to both because the hand is my three-dimensional reference now. So anyway, what I might start by doing is just picking some spot where I can actually sort of dive in and start actually sculpting this object that's in front of me. Now, what's interesting is I don't have to adhere to that outline. In fact, it might be better if I choose not to just create an actual outline of my hand first. It might be better to just play and wander through all of the lines that define my hand, all those places where I can kind of cross back and forth over the surface and slowly weave a hand. In a way, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm kind of weaving a hand out of wire. So what I think might be interesting here is that if I sort of start here, and you can start anywhere. You could start with a finger and work your way across and start sort of defining that first and work your way into the hand. I'll leave that up to you. But what I'm going to try to do here is follow that little mark around the palm. By the way, you should be able to work this wire with just your fingers. Any level of detail beyond that is more than I'm expecting here today. I'd like you to spend 20 minutes, half an hour trying to create this replica of your hand, this three-dimensional recreation of a two-dimensional drawing. Even longer, actually. I'll show you one in a moment where I actually spent about an hour, but I would like you to commit some time to trying to create this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my hand and this place where I see this line right here coming up over, and I believe what I was looking at was something like right here, okay? I see it coming up right over there. So I am going to start by pulling this up and imagining that I am traversing the surface of my palm. And you can see what I'm trying to do is start to replicate this line that comes up and then over the top of my palm. And I have to kind of explore and understand the topography of my palm. When I look at it, I can see that this part of my palm is a little bit lower than the big sort of like mass where my thumb is, all right? So I am going to see a three-dimensional, a topographic difference between them. All right, so here I am, I jump over, and what I might do is just join up with this line that kind of bisects my palm, and I could just work my way across it like that, okay? Then I might drop myself back down like that. Whoop. And it's kind of crazy to try to manage this wire. You'll have to get used to that. But anyway, I might drop back down like that, and then either turn down and start to define the edge of the palm. I mean, edge of the, the rounded part of the base of the thumb. Or I might sort of turn upward and start to kind of define the base of the finger. Very, very sort of like simple in those terms. I just want you to sort of like navigate and try to reimagine what you've drawn here two-dimensionally in three-dimensional terms. I'm going to encourage you to just keep pulling the wire out and continuing to work as you go. So in other words, please don't make a cut, wrap a new piece of wire on and start another line. Make this entire piece, this entire sculpture, a single piece of wire. Okay? In other words, one line will define the hand that you're going to be working on here. And I can show you an example. I'll show you the example right now. So right here, coming down before you, all right, is a hand I was working on. And again, you can see the scale got away from me, and I don't mind that. That's totally fine. Here, I'll turn it around. Now what I've done is I'm stuck on my pants. I have migrated from sort of like space to space in order to define this hand, this structure. You can see, let's see if we can actually find it where I began. I believe it was right over here somewhere. I kind of looped my way down, defined up here to the edge of the hand here, worked my way up this finger, back all the way down, over across the palm, down to the base of the thumb. So you can see I'm just exploring. I'm just exploring this hand form. You know, and you can also see it creates a hand that's really quite transparent. It's actually just kind of a winding, exploratory, meandering line form in space. I'm basically creating a drawing from wire in space. Now the funny thing is we've been talking a lot about line quality, you know, thicker lines helping to sort of render a certain part of your sort of like drawing, and thinner lines which are more delicate. We've been talking about all kinds of line work. Here your line work becomes relatively consistent, right? What you're really concentrating on is how that line kind of like holds together the form in space. So this is a three-dimensional exploration of a two-dimensional idea. All right, just to repeat, for this assignment, we're going from 3D to a two-dimensional drawing back to a three-dimensional form. Now, like I said, I believe this took me about an hour of just playing. And I'm not pretending like it's absolutely perfect. It doesn't perfectly resemble a hand. But what I like about it, even though it's a little bit loose and it doesn't hold itself together perfectly, what I really like about it is the way it's starting to kind of explore the lines that I can kind of observe within the hand. And it's also beginning to explore and understand the contour of a hand. You can see, because I'm not tying it to itself in a whole bunch of places, it only holds itself together loosely. And that's fine. I am not looking for something that is completely refined and resolved, okay? I am looking for you to sort of explore and experiment with the way line holds a sort of like proposed form together. So I hope this is helpful to you. This is the baseline. This is the prompt. This is the experiment. How do you do this? How do you do this without breaking this wire up into a bunch of little pieces? How do you do it with one single line? So this particular drawing in space is about 30 feet long. So this is about 35 feet of wire. How long will yours be? Hopefully it's at least that, and you're doing at least as much work as I've done here to really explore the actual sort of like topographic surface of a hand. I wish you luck. Let me know if you have any questions. You're welcome to send me a message, and I'll look forward to seeing you in class to discuss these works.